let's focus on these two players, Gyökeres and Isak. I think going into the World Cup, we had low expectations for Sweden, didn't we? Just because they didn't do too well in qualifying. Have we kind of forgotten the power of those front two? I mean, some of the biggest stars in the Premier League.
Yeah, no question. I think what's interesting is that through 6 World Cup qualifying games for Sweden, they scored 4 goals. And last night in one World Cup game, they scored 5, which then speaks to kind of the power of these two guys in particular. There's obviously been a trend over the years of just, hey, if we have strikers, 2 really good strikers, we're just going to play with 1 and have wingers, right? We'll play with a 4-3-3. Graham Potter made the decision, I'm going with 2 strikers. It's kind of old school in some ways to roll out 2 strikers. And obviously, it played to great effect. And I wonder now, as they move through the group and into the knockout rounds, how you defend these two, especially as they get going, because they not only got their goals, but they also are looking for each other and looking for that combination, which I think makes them very dangerous.
I think when you just look at the 2 profiles of the 2 strikers, they actually really complement each other. I'm so happy you're throwing it back, Jimmy, to things that we kind of grew up with in the 90s and the turn into terms of 2000, where 2 strikers up front was very common. But what you realise in terms of the profile of those 2 strikers is they were going to complement each other's game, whereas Viktor wants to lead the line, he wants to be on the last shoulder, he wants to run in channels, he wants to show his physicality. And Alexander Isak can also do that, but what I love about Isak's game, if you watch him, he actually finds little pockets where he can be a free roaming, almost like a second striker in certain places. And I actually think it's unlocked something within him which I think gives him an element of freedom on the pitch. He can pull up on the left-hand side, he can do an overload on that side, he can come to a right-hand side where you can pull people into one-on-ones. I think the combination between those two allows Sweden to almost be a very dangerous threat, especially in the final third. Is whether or not they could keep the concentration going the other way is my only question mark. But if you're going to have that level of quality in the final third, you can always cause problems against anybody.
I think if you didn't know the profiles of those 2 guys, last night Isak was a winger for a majority of that game, right? I mean, he played. I mean, how many times? Again, we sat and watched that game. I was with Marcelo Babo, and we were amazed how many times he had his heels on the touchline. Right, and he was combining with a left back. He's getting up and down, looking for Gyökeres. And then in the moments where Gyökeres goes and runs in the channel, you know you have a guy that can fill in as a 9, right? Because he's very comfortable there. So you mentioned the expectations of this Swedish side. The expectation was that Graham Potter wasn't going to play them together. Right, now he's found a way, and it looks like I hate taking away and say he stumbled on this in some way where he almost had to, because you have to make a decision at the end. You're a manager, right, and you're responsible for all of these things. But if he didn't stumble on it, he's figured out a formula that I think makes it really difficult to defend for oppositions.
What do you think Graham Potter's unlocked in this Swedish side?
I think hunger. I think especially when I think about the 2 strikers we're speaking about, Viktor Gyökeres came with the heavy price tag. Of course, he's now won a Premier League trophy, but there was a lot of pressure on his shoulders this year in terms of to lead that line, and Arsenal looking for this focal point to lead the... And Alexander Isak's coming into this tournament trying to remind the world that I'm still one of the best number 9s in world football. I mean, injuries has derailed a lot of his continuity with Liverpool this year. No 2 ways about it. So when you talk about fresh legs, impact, especially now confidence if he has that in his body, he's going to come into this tournament fitness-wise probably feeling somewhere close to what is his maximum again. And especially he hasn't had the problems and the rigours on this for a whole 50-game season. He's probably coming in with a level of hunger. Now, Graham Potter has his own thing to prove because we already know at club level, he's had good moments and he's had bad moments. Now is an opportunity at national team level to really put yourself into the good graces of European football again and remind everybody on the world stage that I'm still one of the top young coaches around.
They still have to figure it out defensively because they've given up a goal in 11 straight games in all competitions or friendlies and everything included. So they got to get that side of it sorted out. But if and when they do, they're going to be really dangerous going forward. It kind of reminded me, actually, of the U.S.-Paraguay game, where all of a sudden, once they got some momentum, Tunisia had no answers for what they were going to do. They had plenty of time and space to combine and connect, and there were a lot of similarities, I thought, in the feel of that particular game. What's interesting about this team is that Victor Lindelof is the only player that has World Cup experience. They didn't qualify in 2022. He was the lone member of the 2018 team. And so he's actually, Graham Potter, having to figure out a way to galvanize the team. And when you have a dream start like this one, that's going to bode well for them.
Yeah. A little fact here, Graham Potter, obviously former Chelsea manager, 8.3% of the managers in the World Cup have been sacked by Chelsea. Tunisia reportedly about to sack Sabri Lamouchi.
Wow.
He's only been there since January of 2026. And I believe we're going out to Mbizo Mzamane to talk. No, we're not going out to Mbizo.
Well, we can talk about it.
You guys talk about him. You are the experts as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what does this mean for Tunisia? Sacking a manager after their first game, is that any good? What's the decision behind that?
Clearly not good, because it means the results haven't gone their way, right? You couple that, the loss with the 5-0 against Belgium in the last warm-up game, there's clearly something going on there. I just try to always look at this from a player standpoint, right? Like what you would be thinking at this point. You're down because you lost. It's the World Cup. You've been preparing for this forever, it seems like. Now your manager gets sacked, right? So there might be a moment where they get we were joking in the break about a managerial boost, right? Yeah, the bounce, the game.
Does that exist? The world manager bounce.
Is that a thing? I don't know. We're going to find out. But the players might be happy about this. We don't know what's going on in the dressing room, but certainly odd timing.
Yeah, what's the point in doing it after one game?
No, I think we talked about it before, where there had to be something happening before this game. And if they perform like that one more time, then they were going to sack him. I don't know. That's a pretty crazy decision. He's only been in charge since January. I guess they've had 5 coaches since they started World Cup qualifying in 2023. So they already felt like there's some uncertainty in the role. But once you come into a tournament, that has to be solidified, JD. I mean, you can't at that point. Because, again, what kind of message does that send to the players? Or are the players in charge and like, enough of this guy? Because they did capitulate at the end of that game. Like, Sweden were running all over them.
So there is precedence of this, especially when you think about the African region. I mean, Ivory Coast, of course, fired their manager in the middle of the AFCON and then went on to do something that was quite special in that moment. Morocco, we know, have changed their head coach leading into this competition. And anyone would look at Morocco over the last 4 years and think that is an element of stability. You would think you want to carry that momentum from their superlatives they had in Qatar. But then this Tunisia decision, I think, when you think about the tenure, the shortness in terms of what he's had to lead this team, there has to be, and I will always defer to players here in these situations, but there has to be something that's rumbling within the changing room. This has to have been a conversation that had to have been had with the leadership group in terms of from the players, also above them as well, because you don't really want to cause disruption. What you don't want is headlines outside of your camp, around your camp. What you want is an element of just peace, because then you can put your best foot forward in terms of when you're performing in the competition. Whatever has occurred, we're not going to find out until after the tournament. All we need to worry about right now is the interim boss that's stepping in, who has a great experience, a great understanding in terms of in that coach, in that change room. That's got to be pinnacle number one. Who's going to lead the rest of this group? Because you still have a competition, minimum of 2 games to establish yourself. But all I would say is he probably never graced himself with any glory, because leading into this, the consecutive losses, the depth and the quality in which they lost as well. 5 goals in qualifiers is one thing, or friendlies is one thing, but now 5 goals in terms of in your opening game, or 4 goals is a real eye-opening situation for anybody. And they felt like I needed to make a change.
I'm trying to think of the timing of all this, right? You just played a game, and normally when you sack a manager and you have someone in mind, you've had a conversation with that guy for a little period of time, right? Whoever they bring in, what was, I think they've got somebody, but what are you doing at that time? You're probably sitting on a beach in, wherever, and you're watching the World Cup, and all of a sudden your phone rings, right? Because if they would have called this guy before the World Cup, what's the messaging? Right? Hey, if we lose the first game, if we get hammered in the first game, you're in. I don't understand the timing. None of it makes sense. It would make sense if somebody on that staff, maybe, or someone in the youth national team. And it sounds like they're going to bring someone who's been with the team before. But maybe, you see a youth national team coach come in, and we've seen that throughout the World Cup, where guys get promoted. De La Fuente is one of those guys at Spain, right? He's probably the most famous guy right now. But, man, just think about, the logistics. Firing a guy and finding a guy in 6 days' time to manage your team at the World Cup.
Well, if you promote from within, you probably want to lean on a legend, right? That would be the easiest thing. If I was in a situation where I need to automatically command respect of my changing room again. Now, we're hearing that Khazri is one of the people that is potentially going to step into the interim. That's just the reports. If Khazri steps in, this is someone who's led the nation, scored, 20-plus goals in terms of the nation, has a reputation in terms of in Europe. I remember him playing for Sunderland and Rennes and a couple of other teams. So he's someone that's going to automatically come in, and those younger players that automatically, their chest is going to be leveled up, because they're going to recognize, hey, this is someone that has been here, done it, and represented the nation that we're supposed to be sort of held in at this moment. Because what you don't want is the disruption and then disharmony. That's what you're trying to stop. Whatever it was that he was producing as a manager, the Federation made a decision, and now you want to add an element of calmness for the rest of this tournament at least.
More often than not, when a new manager comes in, they try to simplify things. And so they're going to have, thankfully, with an expanded tournament, they got a week between games. So that gives a new manager a little bit of time to work with the group. How do we solve this? They're going to need 4 points out of the remaining 6, most likely, to get into the knockout rounds. Unfortunately, they play Japan next, and then they play the Netherlands last. So they need to give themselves a chance in the next game. So at the minimum, they need to draw against Japan. After what I saw from Japan last night, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Japan is good.
This has happened before for Tunisia. In 1998, they fired their head coach mid-tournament as well.
Clearly, they have been underperforming quite severely in the build-up to this tournament. And as a matter of fact, they've been underachieving for quite some time. I mean, Tunisia is considered one of the giants of the African game, in terms of their historical performances. They have won AFCON. And as a matter of fact, they're one of Bafana Bafana's biggest rivals. We've gone to a couple of finals against them as well. So this is a top-tier team, a nation who expects a little bit more, and to be giving up 10 goals in 2 games like that is quite a serious issue. I think they were a little bit unfortunate, however, yesterday. I think they weren't spectacular, but I think their goalkeeper let them down on a number of occasions, and I think perhaps just the lack of patience with the way the team has been performing so far has led them to some pretty drastic conversations.
And Mbizo, these type of conversations occur a long time before the actual announcement. So what's the next steps here for Tunisia? What do you want to see? Is there an interim coach, or have they got their mind on somebody already?
I'd suspect that if you're taking something so drastic like this, you don't quite have a backup planned yet. I mean, if they do, I'd be surprised. But I think what they really should be looking to do is to just diagnose the game itself as opposed to these long-standing problems. I don't think a move this drastic will bring any particular results. Although I say that, but again, Ivory Coast is an example that's going to live forever in our memory, because they fired their coach after the first game and were able to come back and win AFCON. So if everybody's following that model, I'm not sure how often it'll be successful. But for me, I think it's rather diagnose the problems from the match and try to improve in your next one.
All right, Mbizo, let's put on your coaching hat then and say they hired you to take the job. They're playing Japan in their next game. What changes would you make to their starting 11? Would you change out the goalkeeper, as you mentioned? Maybe made a couple errors in that one, or didn't make the timely saves that were needed to keep them in that match. What would you change within their team?
Yeah, I think the only major change I would make is the goalkeeper, because again, I don't think that they were awful, absolutely awful, at least initially to begin the game. But of course, when you give up goals like that, and then for the rest of the game you're not quite in control, you can't get a foothold, you miss some of your own opportunities, which they were able to create, as a matter of fact, to the point where they actually scored. So for me, I think changing the goalkeeper would be a major one, because if they don't give up those 2 goals. If you look at the first one, he should have come out and just caught it, taken the contact. He needs a little bit more courage and bravery than that. On the second one, it's a pretty basic shot. He should be pushing that away, and a top-class goalkeeper actually holds it. And so morale is already low at this point, and the rest of the game was just downhill from there. But they did attack. They did threaten. So I think that, you try to just motivate the team and to make sure that they remember their ability, their quality, because historically, Tunisia is a defensively solid team. So that's what I would do. Change the goalkeeper, try to motivate and tell them at this point, you really have nothing to lose. Let's get after it against the Japanese, and maybe try to overwhelm them physically as opposed to try to match them tactically and technically, and hope that you can rely on that for a victory.
So, Mbizo, let me get this right here. We missed a bunch of opportunities. We had a bunch of attacks, and we're not going to change any of the forwards. We're just going to get rid of the goalkeeper. Is that what we're doing?
Look at the goalkeeper union.
That's it.
Yes,
I'm firing you. Jimmy, we fired him.
Mbizo's fired.
Third coach of the World Cup. No, love it, Mbizo. Yeah. Look, really quick. Normally we hear, thank you for your time. You did everything. The staff did everything. Blah blah. We heard in that announcement, we have a problem with the coach. That was the announcement, right, that came out. That's a lot different than what we normally hear. Do you think anytime in the near future we're going to figure out what the problem, outside of the goalkeeper, of course, that we had with the manager?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious about that statement as well, especially because of the amount of time. But again, it really is, I think, a function of the underperformance leading into the tournament, as opposed to solely this performance alone. So certainly there has to be something philosophical or something about the approach. But again, I didn't see anything different from Tunisia that I generally see from them, and I've seen from them in the last couple of AFCONs and the last couple of games. So I wonder what's so different different about this coach that they have a problem with him in particular, as opposed to the performance, because that's not what they focused on, is it? It sounded a little bit more personal than that. So I would be very curious to see, or to hear rather, what's going on in the back rooms.
Thanks for watching this video from Morning Footy. For all news and insights regarding leagues around the world like EFL, Serie, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.